This week on Pots and Trowels, we're out in a cold and frosty garden, just having a check round to make sure there's no winter damage. And it's brought to you with the support of Cobra Garden and Allett. Hello and welcome to a cold and frosty Pots and Trowels. And we've certainly had some pretty cold weather over the last couple of weeks. I know some parts of the country have had quite a lot of snow. In the bit of North Yorkshire where we are, we've had some, but not too much. It's mainly frosty nights that we've had. So as a result, there's not an awful lot we can do outside in the garden. The lawns are all covered in frost, the ground is solid, so we don't want to be trampling over it. We can do more harm than good. So it's as well to keep off and wait for a week or two until things thaw out and we get some milder weather. We've still got things though of interest in the garden. I've noticed there's some hellebores, the green Phaetodicym are just starting into flower. The bulbs are all pushing through, which is lovely at this time of the year to see the daffodils, and we've got maybe 3 or 4 inches of growth there, so the promise of some lovely flowers to come in March and April. And the first of the snowdrops are just poking through, and we've got 1 or 2 little flowers on there, so lots to look forward to in the garden. But what I'm just going to do is have a quick wander around just to check on a few things to make sure we've not got any frost damage in the garden. And the first thing is always keep an eye on water features if you've got one in the garden. This is our water feature that we made a few years ago. It's watering cans and an old cattle trough. They're linked together with pipes, and we've got an electric pump in there. So through the summer we've got water pouring out of these watering cans all the time. As soon as we start to prepare for winter, I always turn the pump off so that the pipe work doesn't freeze and cause any damage, because we have a series of pipes running underneath here into all of these watering cans. So they're turned off and the pump is nicely isolated. But as you can see, we've got a good thick covering of ice on there. Now, this is a big volume of water, so it's not going to freeze solid. And if it does, it will expand and push upwards and not cause any damage. And as you can see, I've actually pushed the ice down. There is still plenty of water there, which I tend to do on a daily basis so that the birds can come and sit on here and have a drink of nice chilled water. But if you've got a small water feature in your garden and it's outside, check it and make sure that it doesn't freeze solid, because in a small feature, especially a plastic one, the ice can expand and it can crack it. So if you do need to thaw it, be very careful, get some warm water, make sure the pump is taken out of it, and if you can, drain it off and take it into the house. We might still get some very cold weather through the rest of January and February, so it's just best to be on the safe side to make sure that it doesn't damage. So check your water features. The other thing that I'm going to check is our outside tap, because I want to make sure that that's okay in this frosty weather and doesn't come to any harm. This time of the year, outside taps are really prone to frost damage, so it's important that you keep them lagged and insulated to prevent any leaks and burst pipes. So this one's been insulated, and it's also got a polystyrene cap on there, so this will help to give some frost protection. I'm using just bubble polythene that I use in the greenhouse that's wrapped around the pipe there, but you can buy foam pipe work that slots over it, or some people box them in and then put some insulation inside it. But it is important that you keep the frost off. Just a couple of degrees of frost is enough to freeze the tap and the pipe work and for damage to start and occur. What I also do though, as a belt and braces thing, is I turn it off at the stop tap back at the house, which is the pipe that comes up to the garden. So if I turn that on, there is no water in there because it's isolated there, and I turn it on when I need it, fill the cans to do the hens and various things, and then turn it back off at the house so that I know that there's no water in the pipe work, but I still have that on there just to make doubly sure. So do that with your taps. Just also want to mention bulbs. We've talked about the bulbs that are growing in the garden. We've got the first of the snowdrops and we've got daffodils 4 or 5 inches tall, but these are some bulbs that we planted in the autumn in pots. And I'm often asked by people about bulbs in pots, and they're worried that the pot freezes solid in the winter, and do they need to bring them in somewhere warm where they're going to be out of the cold? Well, the answer is no. If you've got things like daffodils and tulips and crocus and iris and snowdrops, all the winter hardy bulbs are fine if they freeze solid. And we can see here, this is a little pot that I did, and these are some crocus that are just starting to push through here. This compost is absolutely solid. It's frozen solid in a block, but they will be perfectly okay. Spring flowering bulbs have the ability to freeze and survive. They almost have a built-in antifreeze in them, so they're not going to come to any harm at all. And we can see that they're pushing through there nicely, and as soon as the weather thaws, they will carry on growing and we'll get flowers. And this pot here at the back, this is the lasagna pot that we planted last year. We're just going to space those onto the compost, which has got tulips in the base. It's then got daffodils in the middle and iris reticulata, and we can see the irises there pushing through, and even 1 or 2 daffodils are just starting. So March will have flowers on that right the way through to May, but don't worry about them freezing, they're absolutely fine. Well, thank you for watching Pots and Trowels, and thank you for telling all your friends and sharing these videos with them. Next week, if it's still cold, I'm going to go into the greenhouse where it's just a little bit warmer. So join us then, but in the meantime, stay safe and keep warm.